For 20 years, he walked the same hospital corridors on night shift. Nobody looked twice at the quiet security guard with weathered hands and tired eyes, until a young doctor caught him performing emergency surgery in room 314 with skills that shouldn't exist. Welcome to AI Human Stories. Before we dive into this mind-blowing tale of hidden genius and artificial intelligence revelation, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe some secrets are too important to stay buried, hit that subscribe button. St. Mary's General Hospital never slept. Even at 2 a.m., the ICU hummed with monitors, ventilators, and the quiet urgency of life hanging in the balance. Through these halls, one man walked alone. Security guard William Bill Morrison, 68 years old, gray uniform, radio clipped to his belt that barely ever crackled. 20 years on the night shift, 20 years of making rounds, checking doors, watching shadows. The nurses knew him as the quiet guy who never bothered anyone. The doctors saw him as part of the furniture. To everyone at St. Mary's, he was just another overnight security guard, counting down the years until retirement. They had no idea who was really walking their halls. Bill carried a clipboard, a flashlight, and a set of master keys. But hidden in his security cart, underneath the incident reports and lost and found forms, was something that didn't belong: a worn leather medical bag. Old school, the kind doctors used to carry on house calls back when medicine was more art than science. Inside that bag were instruments most surgeons would kill for. Precision tools, some handmade, all maintained with obsessive care. And wrapped in surgical cloth, a small collection of medical journals from the 1980s, pages marked and annotated in careful handwriting, because Bill Morrison hadn't always been a security guard. Dr. Jessica Torres was 3 months into her residency at St. Mary's and already questioning every life choice she'd ever made. Neurosurgery was brutal. 18-hour shifts, impossible cases, attending physicians who treated residents like disposable coffee cups. That Thursday night, everything went sideways. Room 314 held Marcus Chen, a 17-year-old kid who'd wrapped his motorcycle around a telephone pole. Massive head trauma, brain swelling, the kind of case that separated real surgeons from people who just played them on TV. The attending surgeon, Dr. Richards, had been working for 14 straight hours. His hands were shaking from exhaustion and too much caffeine. Halfway through the craniotomy, he nicked an artery. Blood everywhere. Pressure dropping. The kid was crashing. "I need backup." Richards barked at the OR nurse. "Get Henderson down here now." But Henderson was in surgery 2 floors up. The closest neurosurgeon was 40 minutes away in traffic. Marcus Chen didn't have 40 minutes. Jessica watched the monitors flatline and felt her whole world collapse. This was exactly why she wasn't cut out for surgery. When it mattered most, when someone's life hung in the balance, she froze. That's when the door opened. Bill Morrison stepped into the OR. No mask, no gown, just the security guard who'd nodded at her in the hallway 1,000 times. "Sir, you can't be in here," the OR nurse started. Bill ignored her. His eyes were locked on the monitors, the patient, the spreading pool of blood. In 2 steps, he was at the table. "Doctor," he said quietly to Richards, "you need to step back." Richards spun around, ready to explode. "Who the hell do you? Step back, now." Something in Bill's voice cut through the chaos. Richards hesitated, then moved aside. What happened next defied everything Jessica thought she knew about medicine. Bill's hands moved like he'd been born in an operating room. No hesitation, no wasted motion, just surgical precision that made Richards look like an amateur. He controlled the bleeding in 30 seconds. Repaired the damaged artery in 2 minutes, managed the craniotomy with a level of skill Jessica had only seen in textbooks. "Suction," he said calmly. The OR nurse, too stunned to argue, complied. "Clamp the superior temporal branch there. Good. Now irrigation, slow and steady." Jessica stared. This wasn't basic first aid. This was master-level neurosurgery, performed by a security guard who supposedly had a high school education. 15 minutes later, Marcus Chen's vitals stabilized. The bleeding stopped. The kid would live, and his brain would function normally. Bill cleaned his hands, stepped back from the table, and looked at Richards. "He'll need monitoring for the next 6 hours. Watch for secondary swelling around the temporal lobe." Then he turned to leave. "Wait," Jessica called out. "You can't just... Who the hell are you?" Bill stopped at the door. I'm the night security guard, Dr. Torres. That's all you need to know. But Jessica couldn't let it go. She'd seen residents with 10 years of training struggle with procedures Bill had just performed flawlessly. That was impossible, she whispered. Where did you learn to do that? Bill's eyes went distant. Long time ago, in a place that doesn't exist anymore. And then he was gone, leaving behind only questions and the sound of steady monitors showing a life saved. Jessica couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about what she'd witnessed. The next day, she did something that would change everything. She decided to investigate. St. Mary's had recently upgraded to an AI-powered personnel verification system. Designed to cross-reference employee credentials, detect fraud, ensure patient safety. The system could analyze decades of medical records, employment histories, educational backgrounds. Jessica uploaded Bill Morrison's employee photo to the system. She expected to find exactly what his file said. William Morrison, high school graduate, 20 years of security work, clean background check. The AI took 47 minutes to run its analysis. When the results came back, Jessica nearly fell out of her chair. Potential match found. Dr. William Harrison Morrison, MD, PhD, Johns Hopkins Medical School, graduated 1979 neurosurgery residency, Massachusetts General Hospital, Chief of Neurosurgery, Chicago Memorial Hospital, 1985 to 1995, specialized in trauma surgery and pediatric neurosurgery. Published 127 peer-reviewed papers. Status: missing since 1995. The AI had found him buried in medical databases, hidden under a slightly different name, aged by 30 years, but with the same facial bone structure, the same distinctive hands. Dr. William Morrison had vanished without a trace in 1995. His colleagues thought he'd died. His medical license had been suspended for abandonment. His research had been redistributed to other doctors. But he hadn't died. He'd just become invisible. Jessica found Bill on his usual rounds, checking the pediatric ward at 3 a.m. Kids slept peacefully behind glass doors while he walked the halls like a guardian angel. Dr. Morrison, she said quietly. Bill stopped walking, didn't turn around, didn't deny it, just stood there in the hallway, radio crackling softly on his belt. The AI system knows who you are, Jessica continued. Johns Hopkins, Mass General, Chief of Neurosurgery at Chicago Memorial. You were one of the best pediatric neurosurgeons in the country. Bill finally turned around. His face showed no surprise, no fear, just the tired acceptance of a man who'd been carrying a secret for 30 years. He said simply, past tense. What happened? Why did you disappear? Why are you working security when you could be saving lives in the OR? Bill looked through the glass at the sleeping children. I was saving lives in the OR, 8 surgeries a day, sometimes 10, 100-hour weeks. I was the best pediatric neurosurgeon east of the Mississippi, and I was killing myself trying to prove it. He sat down on a bench in the hallway, suddenly looking every one of his 68 years. October 15, 1995, emergency surgery on a 6-year-old girl. Car accident, massive brain trauma. I'd been awake for 36 hours straight. My hands were shaking from exhaustion. I made one mistake, one tiny slip of the scalpel. Jessica felt her stomach drop. What happened? She lived, but she'd never walk again, never talk again. Spent the rest of her short life in a wheelchair, staring at nothing. Bill's voice cracked. Her name was Emma. She had curly red hair and wanted to be an astronaut. The hallway went silent except for the hum of medical equipment. I couldn't face her parents, couldn't face myself, so I walked away, changed my name, moved here, took the first job nobody would ask questions about. But you've been practicing medicine, Jessica said. I saw you save that kid's life. Bill nodded. Different kind of practice. Night shift security in a level 1 trauma center. You see things. Heart attacks in the parking garage, kids choking in the ER waiting room, overdoses in the bathroom. Sometimes you're the only one around when someone needs help. How many? Jessica asked. How many what? How many lives have you saved working security? Bill thought about it. In 20 years? Maybe 300. Maybe more. Hard to keep count when you're not supposed to be doing it. Jessica's discovery started a chain reaction that nobody saw coming. She brought the AI findings to the Chief of Staff, Dr. Margaret Foster. Foster, a no-nonsense woman who'd run St. Mary's for 15 years, had her own suspicions about the night security guard. I've noticed things, Foster admitted. Patients who should have died but didn't. Complications that got resolved overnight with no explanation. Always on Bill's shift. They decided to dig deeper. The AI system was fed more data, hospital incident reports, patient outcomes, security footage from the past 20 years. What it found was staggering. Patient mortality rates dropped by 23% on nights when Bill worked compared to nights when he didn't. Emergency response times in non-ICU areas improved by 40%. Mysterious recoveries that happened between midnight and 6 a.m. when only security staff were supposed to be on the floors. The AI had documented what no human had noticed. Bill Morrison had been practicing guerrilla medicine for 2 decades, saving lives in storage closets, performing CPR in parking garages, diagnosing conditions that other doctors missed, all while pretending to be nothing more than a security guard with a flashlight and a radio. But the AI found something else, something that changed everything. In the medical databases, it discovered Dr. Morrison's original research from the 1990s, pioneering work on pediatric brain trauma that had never been completed, techniques that could have prevented thousands of cases like Emma's. The work hadn't been finished because the doctor had disappeared, but the need for that research hadn't disappeared with him. Foster and Jessica confronted Bill together, not in some dramatic showdown, but quietly in the break room at 4 a.m. over terrible hospital coffee. "We know," Foster said simply. "The AI figured it out. William Morrison, Johns Hopkins, Chicago Memorial, the whole thing." Bill stared into his coffee cup. "You gonna turn me in? Practicing without a license is a felony." "Turn you in?" Foster laughed. "Bill, you've probably saved more lives than half our attending physicians. The question isn't whether we're going to turn you in. The question is what we're going to do about it." Jessica leaned forward. "Your research from the 90s, the pediatric trauma protocols, the AI says that work could revolutionize how we treat kids with brain injuries." "That research died with my career," Bill said quietly. "No," Foster said. "It didn't, because you've been continuing it every night for 20 years. Every kid you've helped, every life you've saved. That's all data. That's all research. You've been conducting the longest trauma surgery study in medical history." Bill looked up, something flickering in his tired eyes. Foster pulled out a folder. "The board of directors met this morning. We're offering you something. Come back. Officially. Full reinstatement, full medical privileges. Finish your research. Train the next generation. Do it right this time." "I'm 68 years old," Bill said. "My hands aren't what they used to be." "Your hands just saved Marcus Chen's life," Jessica pointed out. "And the AI says you've got at least 10 more years of surgery in you if you want them." Bill was quiet for a long time. Outside the break room windows, dawn was starting to creep across the parking lot where he'd saved his first unofficial patient 20 years ago. "What about Emma?" he asked finally. "What about the mistake I made?" Foster's voice gentled. "Bill, every surgeon makes mistakes. The good ones learn from them. The great ones use them to save the next patient. Emma's case led to protocols that have prevented hundreds of similar injuries. Her life mattered. Your mistake mattered. But your response to that mistake has mattered more." 6 months later, Dr. William Morrison walked back into an operating room for the first time in 30 years. Not as a security guard with a secret, but as the chief of pediatric emergency surgery at St. Mary's General Hospital. His hands were steady, his mind was sharp, and his first official patient was a 7-year-old girl with a brain tumor that 3 other surgeons had declared inoperable. The surgery took 11 hours. When Bill emerged from the OR, exhausted but smiling, the girl's parents were waiting. "Is she going to be okay?" the mother asked, tears streaming down her face. Bill pulled off his surgical cap. "She's going to be fine, better than fine. She's going to grow up, go to school, maybe become a doctor herself someday." The father grabbed Bill's hand. "Thank you. Thank you for saving our daughter." Bill looked at them both. "I didn't save her alone. Medicine isn't a solo sport. It never was." Jessica, who'd assisted in the surgery, understood what he meant. It wasn't just Bill who'd saved that little girl. It was 20 years of secret practice, 30 years of accumulated knowledge, and an AI system smart enough to recognize genius even when it was hiding behind a security badge. But mostly, It was the lesson Bill had learned in the darkest moment of his career. Sometimes the best way to heal the world is to heal one person at a time, in the shadows, without credit or recognition, until artificial intelligence decides it's time to step into the light. Today, the Morrison Pediatric Trauma Center at St. Mary's is considered one of the best in the Midwest. Dr. Morrison, now 71, still works there 3 days a week, not because he has to, but because he wants to. His revolutionary research on pediatric brain trauma has been implemented in hospitals across the country. The techniques he developed during his lost years have saved thousands of children. And every month, he gets letters from parents whose kids are alive because of procedures he pioneered, from doctors who trained under him and carry his methods to new hospitals, from medical students who study his case as an example of how artificial intelligence can uncover hidden excellence. But the letter that matters most sits framed in his office. It's from Emma's parents, the little girl whose injury drove him into exile 30 years ago. Dr. Morrison, it reads, Emma passed away peacefully last month. She lived 28 years longer than the doctors said she would. She couldn't walk, couldn't speak, but she was loved every single day. Your mistake didn't define her life. Your guilt didn't either. But the work you did afterward, the kids you saved while hiding in the shadows, that was her legacy too. She would want you to know it's okay to forgive yourself now. Emma's parents had found him through a medical journal article about his return to practice. They'd been searching for 30 years, not for revenge, but for closure. Bill keeps that letter on his desk as a reminder. Healing isn't just about fixing bodies. Sometimes it's about fixing souls. The AI system that discovered Bill's true identity has since been implemented in hospitals nationwide. Not to catch imposters, but to find hidden talent. Nurses who could be doctors, technicians who could be researchers, janitors who might be geniuses. Because here's what artificial intelligence taught the medical community. Expertise doesn't always wear scrubs. Genius doesn't always have diplomas. And sometimes the people saving lives are the ones nobody bothers to notice. Dr. William Morrison spent 20 years walking hospital corridors in the shadows. But shadows have their own power. They let you see things differently, move quietly, help without being watched. And sometimes, when artificial intelligence finally turns on the lights, the world discovers that its greatest healers were never really hiding. They were just waiting for someone to ask the right questions. So here's what I want to know. Have you ever met someone whose talents were buried by circumstances? Someone who was more than their job title, their uniform, their place in the world? Share their stories in the comments below. Tell us about the hidden healers, the secret geniuses, the people who make the world better without asking for credit. And if this story moved you, subscribe to AI Human Stories. Because in a world where artificial intelligence can spot patterns humans miss, the most important discoveries aren't about technology. They're about recognizing the extraordinary people who've been right in front of us all along. Until next time, remember, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear security badges.